Hi, Krishna, everyone. So yeah, thank you so much for coming to our class today. So today we're going to be going over the Mahabharata genealogy, and in that way we'll also get an overview of principal events in Mahabharata. And particularly last time, the first part of the session, we particularly focused on, we spoke about Dushmanta and Shakuntala, who are basically very high up in the ancestry of Arjuna. We spoke about their son Bharat, from whom the term Mahabharata comes. So we won't really cover them today. We'll focus more on the actual Pandavas and those who are kind of against them. So just a brief overview. Can we stop the echo?
Yeah, stop.
Okay, great. So a brief overview is Shakuntala was the daughter of a sage. She married Dushmanta. Eventually, they gave birth to Bharat in the forest, and Bharat is one of the ancestors of the Pandavas. We also spoke about, last time we spoke about Shantanu, marriage to Mother Ganga. That's a type actually, it should be Devavrat. So they gave birth to Devavrat, who was Bhishma Dev, and he made the very important vow that he will never get married, and he'll promise his support to the throne, whoever it may be occupied by. And this led to huge difficulties. It actually put the throne of Hastinapur into jeopardy, actually, because he had two kind of half brothers who were Chitrangrada and Vichitravirya, and they passed away, and they didn't have any heirs. So then that caused a difficulty for the throne of Hastinapur. So then what happened is Vyasadeva, who was a great sage, he then had children with the wives of Vichitravirya and Vichitravirya. This is a special kind of dharma, an emergency dharma. So it's, like when something, like how the police, how they drive, and it's kind of like, seems like in a crazy way, but if you take it out of context, but actually they're trying to really get to the destination very quickly. And no one else can really drive like that. So in a similar way, I think if someone can turn the microphone down, maybe.
You can actually mute.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, great. So in a similar way, there was the emergency dharma, where you had to have Vyasadeva, who's a great sage, having children with the wives of Bhishma Dev's half brothers, Chitangrada and Vichitravirya. And so in this way, they were able to continue the lineage. And so they gave birth to Dhritarashtra and Pandu, and also to Vidur as well. And these three brothers were then going to be entrusted with the responsibility of taking over the throne of Hastinapur. And so Dhritarashtra, as most of us will be aware, was born blind, so he was simply not in a position to take care of the kingdom, because he wouldn't be able to see, so it would impair his ability to really understand what's going on and to protect the kingdom. Therefore, the kingdom was actually entrusted, well, it was understood to be Pandu's responsibility to continue the kingdom. And because of this decision, Gandhari always felt that Gandhari was the wife of Dhritarashtra, and she always felt that Dhritarashtra had been hard done by, because he was the eldest, so she felt technically he should be the one who's in charge of the kingdom. And so she always harbored this kind of envy, this kind of resentment towards Pandu and his wife Kunti, actually. And so what happened is, so this kind of, there's also understood in the Shastras, there's a Shastra of child raising called Kumarabhritya, and it gives the principles by which one can give rise to very strong very devotional, or at least very pious progeny. And it's also explained that the meditation that one has when the child is in the womb, that really influences a child's character. So today there's such a wide appreciation now of mental health issues, of anxieties that people are having in their day-to-day lives. And and this is why it was so important in the Vedic civilization, like the ancient civilization originating from India. It was so important that one has a very cultivates very, very good kind of mentality whilst a child's in the womb, and also during the first 5 years of life. People are very, very careful what they expose a child to. So Gandhari had the meditation of intense envy towards Mother Kunti. And so what happened is she gave birth to 100 sons, but these 100 sons also carried this mood of envy towards their cousins, who were the children of Pandu and Kunti. And so there's that famous story of how Gandhari and Kunti, they were also pregnant at the same time. However, Kunti went into labor before Gandhari did, and therefore Gandhari was so filled with envy and frustration that she, as we're probably aware, she beats her own womb. Then she has a miscarriage, she gives birth to a lump of flesh, and then a sage kindly is able to separate the lumps of flesh into 100 pieces, and then each piece, he puts these 100 pieces into a pot, and each of these it's quite amazing way of
original recipe.
Yeah. Quite a good intervention there. Quite a bit cheaper than what you could do nowadays. So. but yeah, so then they give birth to the 100 Kauravas, who harbour this envy, this malice, which is something that we'll return to. So I also wanted us to just really quickly read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, Divine and Demoniac Natures.
There's actually a copy of the book there as well on the shelf. On the actually, no,
that's Prabhupada's. On your my hands up. Can you read read out?
Actually, maybe I just trying if maybe one if the other one can read. Okay. Chapter 16, text number 4. That's one, right?
16, text number 4. Yeah. So last time we kind of focused on last session we focused on Bhishma Dev, who in essence he was very much attached to truthfulness and also to Dharma in a sense, but he didn't do this really under guidance. And so he'd always, because of misapplication of these high principles, he actually also ended up jeopardizing the throne time and time again. The first time, as you mentioned, with his vow not to have children, and then there was no heir to the throne, so that caused an issue. Also, there's another incident where he ended up, even though the kingdom should have rightfully gone to Pandu's heirs, Bhishma Dev actually said we should divide the kingdom. So that was also another issue. And also the third time is when he didn't protect Draupadi in the dice match. And that also led to another jeopardy of the kingdom. And so in this way, Bhishma Dev, he was very much attached to the principles of righteousness and truthfulness, but he didn't do this under guidance, and he didn't actually understand the ultimate purpose of rightfulness and truthfulness, which actually should be engaged as everything should be in the service of the Lord. So similarly, this time we'll be looking a little bit more at the actions and nature of Karna in particular. Sometimes people feel he's the unsung hero of the Mahabharata, which is quite a strong misunderstanding, actually. Yeah, it's quite the opposite, actually. Yeah, it's quite a strong misunderstanding. Karna is actually, there's one devotee from Chapasi. So Chapasi is established by His Holiness Raghunath Maharaj, wonderful devotional community. And one of the devotees there, Govinda Prabhu Brahmachari, he's spent many years, he's read the entire Mahabharata And he spent many years giving many lectures on Mahabharata, and he himself said that he feels that Karna is actually the worst of the worst in the Mahabharata. So we'll kind of, so we'll get into that today. But today, so we're going to focus on more of the demoniac natures and how they manifest, and we're looking particularly how they manifest in certain personalities in the Mahabharata. So if you could, what was a good name, please?
Dara.
Dara.
Yes.
Oh, Dara. Thank you. If you could please read 16:4.
So I'm not going to use Sanskrit.
Okay.
Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Bhuta.
That's great. So if you could also read the purport, someone else could read, and then someone else may read the Sanskrit after. Okay.
That's wonderful.
In this verse, the world road to hell is described. The demonic want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. They're always arrogant or proud in possessing some type of education or so much wealth. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. Over trifles, they become very angry and speak harshly, not gently. Over trifles, they become they do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. These demonic qualities are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers, and as they grow, they manifest all of those inauspicious qualities.
That's great. So we won't read the Sanskrit today because it's a bit short of time. But as you can see, there's a mention about the wombs of mother and the negative qualities being cultivated. So Vyasadeva, thank you, you can put the focus down, thank you. So Vyasadeva, who was the sage who compiled the Mahabharata, he actually mentioned that if we can picture a tree, we can imagine a tree, he said that Duryodhana, who was like the elder and the leader in the Kauravas, he's the elder of the 100 sons. So he's like an entire tree full of bitter anger. So that's like Duryodhana. So an entire tree full of bitter anger. And Dhritarashtra, who's the father of the Kauravas. So I'll just go into, so that would be Dhritarashtra, who was obviously born blind, and his very chaste wife Gandhari, who blindfolded herself so she would be on an even keel with her husband. So Dhritarashtra, he is like the root of a tree of envy. So Dhritarashtra, he actually understood the proper behavior. He just never followed through on it. There's even passages in the Mahabharata where he says that he knew that they would lose, actually, but he was just so attached to his son, and he was so attached to Duryodhana. So anytime Duryodhana had so many plans to undermine and destroy the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra would never go against those plans. And Dhritarashtra, sometimes he would say, "It's only providence. What can I do? What can I do?" But we always have actually a choice. Even we can understand that our karma, we're born into a particular situation. We always have a choice what to do within that situation. But Dhritarashtra, he never accepted that. He always had a choice about how to actually. He could actually channel the behavior of his son. He never accepted that responsibility. So we had, where was I? So we had Dhritarashtra, we had Gandhari, and Mary. So we had, so this is the, I don't know if it's very clear actually here, but the Pandavas would be on one side, the smaller side, and the 100 sons, the Kauravas are on the other side. And they were constantly averse to the Pandavas, as we're aware. So Dhritarashtra was the root of the tree. Dashushana, who's also one of the elder brothers of the Kauravas, he's like one of the flowers. So Dashushana, he was the one who actually dragged Draupadi into the famed dice match. He actually, so because of that, he had to be destroyed as well. Shakuni, sorry. Okay, great. So Shakuni, he's not on here actually, but he's the brother of Gandhari. So Shakuni was the brother of Gandhari. So he's described as the branch of this tree of envy, and Karna is the trunk. So he takes on a very, very strong and supportive role. Yeah.
Can I just ask, are you going to mention about Shakuni's background? Were you planning to do that? I'm just curious if you were.
Yeah, I could. Let's see if we got time
Okay,
at the
sure.
end. It's an interesting story. Yeah, I'll just have to see if we've got time. So Karna, who's actually interesting. So Karna is he's a very, very interesting character. The first time he really appears strongly in the Mahabharata is when the Pandavas they have their kind of graduation ceremony. So at this graduation ceremony, this is where they're showing off their skills also to the public, and saying this is what we've learned whilst we've been in our training school with our teacher Dronacharya. And so Karna, if you can imagine, so at the graduation ceremony, Karna just comes in and he challenges Arjuna. So it's like if one of us is graduating, maybe I don't know, we're getting a particular kind of prize, and then someone from a completely different university comes in, they're like, that prize should be mine. And it's like completely, it's kind of, quite frankly, a bizarre action to do. And so that was why it was on that basis that that Bhima, who is one of the 5 Pandava brothers. So I'm sorry if there's anything that's not clear, then please do. Yeah, so like Pandava action figures. Yeah. So we've got Bhima, who's the largest Pandava brother in the middle. On the left, this one is Yudhisthira, he's the eldest. We've got Arjuna, who's the archer. You can see. And we've got Nakula and Sahadev, who are the twins. So the first 3 are the sons of Kunti, who's the first wife of Pandu, and then the second 2, Nakula and Sahadev, are the sons of Madri, who is the second wife of Pandu. So just go back, sorry. So yeah, so that'll be Pandu, Kunti and Madri. Okay, so there's a story why this picture is representing them, but I don't know if we've got time to go into that today, but yeah, so just a little visual aid there. Yeah, so you've got the 5 Pandavas. So when Karna comes into the graduation ceremony, and Bhima, who's like, you can see, he's kind of like, he's like kind of a very strong personality. So Bhima said, kind of, what are you doing here? What's your lineage? What's your background? And sometimes that can be misunderstood as Bhima's, being very, maybe very, proud, or even caste conscious, even. But that's not really the intention. And once you understand the context, it's a random person coming in. He's like, where are you from? What are you doing here? That was Bhima's real intention. And so Karna, Karna has, as we mentioned, Karna has an interesting history. So some of us may be aware, Karna is actually the first son of Kunti, of Queen Kunti. So when Kunti was 13 years old, she had this boon, as you call it, or blessing, that she could call upon the demigods, and she was given these particular mantras. And so as this 13-year-old girl, she was very curious, and she used one of the mantras, and I think it was a sunny day, so she thought about the sun god, and then he came, and the mantras actually had to give her a child. So, and he said, you've called the mantra, this is the result. So she was only a 13-year-old girl. No one would have believed her. It was such a mystical experience for her. So then she had a Kana, but she just simply was not in a position to take care of him. And so she had to let him go. And Kana was actually brought up by, they're called suitors, they're charioteers. So Kana was brought up by Adirat and Radha, who brought him up, but they were not on this, not just in terms of you could say maybe social positioning. The charioteers, they work within the royal households, but they're not going to be on the same level as the royalty, really, because they're working for the royalty. So that's the position of Adirat and Radha, and so what happened is Adirat was there at the graduation, and he made it known that he was Kana's father, he's Kana's adoptive father, and then from there, Bhima was saying, okay, you're not in a position to really challenge Arjuna. And this just inflamed Kana's envy. And it's never actually explained in the Mahabharata exactly why Kana has this envy towards Arjuna, but he just has this intense envy towards Arjuna. And so at that stage, that's when Duryodhana, because as we mentioned, he also has this intense envy towards all of the Pandavas. So at this stage, Duryodhana says, I'm going to make Kana the king of Anga. And also, it's also said in Mahabharata, it's not even said if Kana ever went to Anga. He probably didn't even go to his kingdom. But anyway, so Duryodhana he's really just playing a political game, trying to make it such that he's now got this ally who can help him to do in the Pandavas. And so yes, so this is the situation. So this was the moment at which Kana has developed this kind of undying loyalty towards Duryodhana. And so just as we mentioned before, that grandfather Bhishma Dev, he had this undying, unyielding attachment to truthfulness. Kana has this attachment to being loyal, even when it's not actually warranted. So in the Vedas, in the scriptures, we are meant to follow, we're not meant to just follow things for the sake of following, we're actually meant to follow based upon the principle. And actually, ultimately, the highest principle is bhakti, devotional service to the Lord. So even if we're going to be loyal, it should be someone who's actually qualified for us to be devoted towards. It shouldn't just be blindly done. Whereas Kana was blindly loyal to Duryodhana, who was not qualified for such loyalty. And so that in itself caused a lot of issues. So in essence, Govinda Prabhu, as you mentioned before, says loyalty is strongest when one is loyal to a person according to Shastric principles. And Shastric principle is the basis of loyalty. But loyalty is that same quality, which appears to be good, can actually be destructive if it's done without consideration of ultimate Shastric principles, in particular also devotion to the Lord. And so this is what happened to Kana. And so there was a series of attempts of Duryodhana to try to destroy the Pandavas on many occasions. If we see here, you've got this split between the Pandavas, the 5 brothers on one side, their smaller army, and the Kauravas on the other side. And this obviously led to the Battle of Kurukshetra, which we're well aware of. And so Kana ends up fighting, even though he's aware that he is actually the eldest brother to Yudhisthira, and he's very, very aware of this. He stays on the side of the Kauravas. And there's at one point, Khan is actually approached by Krishna, and Khan is made aware that if he simply admits that he is the eldest of the brothers of the Pandavas, then Yudhisthira, who's the eldest. Is everyone able to keep up, by the way? I'm saying a lot of different names. I'm assuming that you're kind of already familiar. I was trying to bring out slightly different elements. Okay. All right. So Kana, so he knew that if he told Yudhisthira that he was the eldest, Yudhisthira would have just handed over the entire kingdom to him. And then he could have, if he wanted to, if he really wanted to, he could have just given the kingdom to Duryodhana. But his envy was so strong that he wanted to fight Arjuna. He wanted that battle. So he actually told Krishna, don't tell Yudhisthira that I'm the eldest brother. Like, don't tell him that. I want to fight Arjuna. So in one sense, if he was truly all about just doing things for Duryodhana, he could have just avoided the war right there and then, but he was so much attached to fighting Arjuna. So this is,
So the Pandavas throughout didn't know Karna's relationship with them.
Yeah, towards, I think there's at some point at the end, I think it's after sometime around the Battle of Kurukshetra, like towards the end, they did find out, but up to the battle, they weren't aware that that Karna was there as a brother. What are we saying? So that's it. So Karna was so Karna, he didn't want to avoid the fight, actually. And also Duryodhana, so and then we should actually go into the background of Karna. And also it's just interesting to understand there are so many different perspectives on the Mahabharata and different interpretations of it. But actually you really want to follow the presentation of the one who compiled the Mahabharata, is Vyasadeva, and he himself says that Karna is the root of all of the envy, not the root, but the trunk of the envy. So you have to accept that principle if you're going to read his scripture. So actually in the previous life, Karna was a demon called Durdam, and he asked, and as demons tend to go in the scriptures, he wanted to be immortal. So he approaches Lord Brahma, and he does his austerities, and unfortunately Lord Brahma is obliged to give Karna, previous life called Durdam, he's obliged to give him boon and benedictions. And so Durdam asks for 3 benedictions. He asks that so he asks for 1,000 pieces of armor, because actually Lord Brahma said it's not actually possible for him to give anyone immortality. He's not immortal himself. So then the demons, in their craftiness, they'll try and ask for some kind of blessing that's almost as if they're immortal. So Durdam, he asks for 1,000 pieces of armor. He asks for it to take 100 years worth of austerity for anyone to destroy just one piece of his armor. And also he says that once his armor is destroyed, his foe will die. So so he's making so that's what he asked for. And then once he got this blessing, then, as demons tend to do, he then terrorized the Brahmins, and he just began to create such an issue that the Lord himself was defeated Durdam, basically. So what happened is, I don't know, it's like, I suppose I can go into it, I suppose, because it's actually very, very important. So what happened is the Lord, as there's Nara Rishi. So Nara Rishi, they really represent austerity, and that's actually why in the Bhagavatam, which is another scripture that we learn a lot about the pastimes of Lord Krishna and his associates. So there's a verse where we actually we pay our obeisances to Narayana Rishi, and that's because we understand austerity is involved in learning, and they represent austerity. So austerity is important in any kind of progress in life, spiritually, or to speak of materially. So anyway, so that's Narayana Rishi, represent austerity. And Narayana Rishi is actually, they're actually twins. One of them is another incarnation of Krishna, and the other is an incarnation of Arjuna. So they're twins. One is divine twin, and one is the servant, but they are twins, and together they are one Rishi. So what happened is, so they were set about to destroy this demon called Durdam. So what they would do is they would do austerities in Badrinath, and so it's like one session of austerities, or one day of austerities in Badrinath is worth 100 austerities somewhere else. So if you remember that one of the benedictions that Durdam asked for is that it takes 100 years worth of austerity to destroy one piece of his armor. So that means that doing austerities in Badrinath in one day is equivalent to 100 years somewhere else. So what would happen is, so Narayana Rishi, so one of the rishis would fight, they'll do the austerities, then they would fight with Durdam, and then they would destroy him, then destroy the armor, destroy the armor, and then because they destroyed the armor, one of them would die, but then the other one would go to fight Durdam, and then the one who died would be revived again. And so like that, they're kind of, it's like on a rotation system to destroy each of the pieces of armor of Durdam. And so, after doing their shifts, so then after doing that 999 times, so Durdam is left with one piece of armor. And then after that, he thought, okay, might have to change my strategy here. so he goes to Suryadev, he goes to the shelter of Suryadev, and Suryadev then he protects Durdam, and then Durdam is then born in the next life as Karna, and he has he's born with one piece of armor basically in his next life as Karna, and he's also born as the son of Suryadev, if you remember, because Surya united with Mother Kunti, and that gave birth to Karna, who was the illegitimate son. So that's what happened. So he had this protection. So then Karna is also very proud, as you understand, he's got his demoniac qualities. So and is everyone's sticking here? So you can follow everything. Okay. So then what happens? So coming back to this battle of Kurukshetra and the fight. So just before the battle, Karna is told, Surya warns him that Indra, another demigod, is going to approach Karna to try to get Karna to give up his armor. So one thing that Karna realized to be known for is his charitable nature, but he didn't do it because he felt someone deserves to receive charity. He actually did it because he just wanted to be really well known and appreciated. And so where are we? Yeah. So then Indra was going to approach Karna and ask for some charity, and he wanted Karna's armor, the last piece of armor that he had, as charity. And so Surya warned him that's just going to happen. So Surya warned him that this is going to happen, but Karna was so proud. He's like, you know what? I know I can handle it. It doesn't matter. And so Indra came. He asked for the armor. Karna was so proud. He's like, he was attached to principle for the sake of the principle and his own ego. It's not really to achieve any kind of higher aim which will actually benefit society or higher than that in service to the Lord. It was just for his own selfish sake. So he wanted to be known as a charitable person. So he gave the armor to Indra. He said, but only in exchange for one of your weapons, and this weapon, it could destroy any foe. And Indra said, because Karna was so attached to destroying Arjuna, he just wanted this weapon. Even if he lost his armor, he wanted this weapon. And Indra said, the thing is, Arjuna is protected by Krishna, so even if you have this weapon, it's not going to work out the way you're expecting. But the Karna is so attached, he's like, no, I'll find a way. So that's how Karna loses his last piece of armor, and he gets this weapon. And Karna is so proud, like even on the Bhakti Gamya. So there's an opportunity for him to discharge his weapon towards Arjuna. And Karna's charioteer, he says to Karna's aiming the weapon at Arjuna's neck. And the charioteer says, don't aim at Karna's neck, because Krishna's his charioteer. He's just going to move the chariot and you're going to lose your aim, you'll misfire. And Karna was so proud. He said, because he was aware, like Lord Ram, when he takes aim, he doesn't move his aim. That's because he's a supreme Lord and it's a perfect aim, But Karna was so proud. He's like, no, just like Lord Ram, once I make my aim, I don't re-aim. He's like, so proud. So his charioteer says, oh, that's a fail. And it was, because Krishna moves the chariot, like Arjuna's like moved out of the way. Karna like misses the aim. Then Karna gets into an argument with his charioteer. Charioteer says, you know what, I'm handing in my resignation. So I'm done. so then Karna's trying to drive his own chariot and be a warrior at the same time, which is another epic fail. And as we all know, chariot wheel gets stuck in the mud. Krishna and Arjuna able to take an opportunity, and Krishna and Arjuna saying, then Karna says, wait, it's not, look, I need to get my chariot wheel out of the mud. It's not right for you to try to destroy me now. And then Krishna says to Arjuna, this is like typical kind of demoniac tendency, like when it suits you, you don't follow the Shastra at all, you don't care about Dharma, and then you expect everything to work out in your favor, and you're calling on Dharma and higher principles, just, as and when for your own benefit. So Krishna says, just finish him off. So this is the very unfortunate life of Karna, where there's a lot of pride, and actually underneath this is like this unyielding loyalty to persons who don't deserve this kind of loyalty, who don't have a proper mission in life. And actually all of this and his own demonic tendency led to his eventual downfall. And also Karna, just to add to Karna, there were certain points where he himself was a dharmic. He didn't follow Dharma on the Bhakti Gamya. He did quite a number of very underhand things, which I won't go into because it'd be too much detail, I think. But he went into quite a few underhand things also as Draupadi, he was also involved in the dice match and then that whole disrobing episode. So there was no consideration of Dharma at that point. So he was in essence actually selfish, although externally it may appear that he was hard done by, the unsung hero, but we actually understand the Shastra according to previous teachers. We can actually understand that Arcana is an example of more of that demoniac tendencies that we read about in the Bhagavad Gita. So I understand we've covered like quite a few things today. I've also touched upon quite a few things, and I think kind of skipped over quite a few things as well. I just want to know if there are any kind of questions or anything.
Maybe a bit of a basic question, but
Yeah.
obviously the Pandavas are called the Pandavas because of Pandu. Why are the Kauravas called the Kauravas?
Oh, because they're in the Kuru
I see,
dynasty.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, aren't they both in the Kuru dynasty?
Yeah, so this
Okay.
this is a very interesting distinction. That's like even in the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita, actually. So this is Dhritarashtra who's speaking this first verse. And he says these famous lines, Mamaka, Pandavas, Chaiva. So Mamaka, my sons, Pandavas, and the sons of Pandu are assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, desiring to fight. What did they do next? But it's noted here that Dhritarashtra, he makes this distinction, my sons, the sons of Pandu, and actually in the Vedic culture should be considered that they were all his children, because Pandu died early. The Pandavas are the sons of his brother. He should have actually accepted them also as his children, but he made this distinction in his own mind, and because of his own envy, his desire for the throne, he felt he couldn't get that, so he wanted his sons to occupy the throne. You know, it should have been the sons of Pandu who occupied the throne. So he himself made this distinction. This is mine, this is theirs. It's, you know, there's a separation here. So yeah, so they're all part of the same royal family, but unfortunately, because of the envy of Dhritarashtra, this distinction is made. So yeah, it's a good point. In one sense, they should all be considered to be Kauravas. Yeah.
There's an interesting point in reference to that when Yudhishthira was when Duryodhana and his brothers came to rub it in the faces of the Pandavas, and Duryodhana got in trouble with who was it? The Yakshas.
Yeah.
And they had a battle, and eventually Duryodhana was captured by the Yakshas. And then somebody from Karna ran off because he was, you know,
Intoxicated.
drunk. I can't remember. And then somebody said, "Oh, we should approach Yudhishthira, who was across the lake."
Yeah.
They were trying to show off in front of the Pandavas, saying, "Look how great we are." And Yudhishthira was approached, and Bhima was like, "Well, to hell with him. He's done our business. You know, got rid of the other." And then Yudhishthira turned around and said, "Externally, we may have, you know, internally we may have our battles, differences. Externally, we're known as the Kauravas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And so we should always present ourselves as a family."
Yes.
And he made that distinction. So he sent Karna and Bhima to go and help free Duryodhana, although that was the worst thing for him.
Yeah. That was a horrible experience with Duryodhana.
He said, "You should have let me die."
I felt humiliated, but
Yeah.
he was saved by them.
And then Karna came weeping back after, saying, "Oh, I'm back." He explained the whole thing, and Duryodhana literally was heartbroken, like, you know, this is like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
I was saved by my enemies.
Yeah.
But Yudhishthira didn't have that mindset.
That's a great point. And also in ISKCON as well, our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, he says you can show your love for me by how you cooperate together. So we should also ultimately have that mood, even though we may have differences of opinions with devotees, but also we should understand we're all part of the same devotional family.
Could you maybe explain like Shikuni's background?
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, that is actually interesting. So Shikuni is he's the brother of Gandhari, and it was at one point, I can't remember who said it, but at one point someone actually said to the Pandavas that you may think, because Shakuni, he actually became kind of like best friends with Duryodhana. And so at one point, someone told the Pandavas, you may think that Shakuni is your greatest enemy, but actually he's your best ally, right? Yeah, it sounds great. It's like, what? How does that make sense? So because Shakuni, he actually in essence, he actually orchestrated the dice match.
Yeah.
But it seems like he did it to help Duryodhana, but actually he did it because he wanted to destroy Duryodhana. Yes, it's very deep. So yeah, it's really deep. So why did he do that? So Shakuni understood from the Shastra, actually, if you offend a chaste woman, then your whole dynasty is destroyed. And Draupadi was a very chaste woman. I mean, there are reasons why she married her 5 husbands. But in essence, she was a very, very devoted wife to her 5 husbands. And actually, it's understood that she was actually born to bring down the demons. And she was so beautiful, so qualified that she actually needed the protection of 5 husbands at the same time. So, and she was very qualified. She served them all. So I managed with 1 husband. So one husband, so she was very qualified. Just about managing there, keeping it going. But she could do with 5. Props to you.
So what you expected.
Keep on his toes. So he understood that if you destroy a chaste woman, then that whole dynasty is destroyed. So he actually orchestrated the dice match because he knew that they would offend Draupadi, who was a chaste woman, and in that way he knew that Duryodhana's entire dynasty would be destroyed. So that's actually the subtle reason behind the Battle of Kurukshetra, is that offense to Draupadi.
Do you want to say why he wanted to do it?
Yeah, well, yeah. So what happened is so Duryodhana, he, as we understand, he was incredibly proud, and actually there was one time when he would tease the Pandavas, and when they were all growing up, and he would insult the Pandavas, and he would say horrible things about their mother Kunti, and he would say, your mum has, I'm not even going to say it's horrible things. So yeah, so Bhima, the eldest of the Pandavas, he would get really, really, really upset about this. And then so one time Bhima was speaking to Shakuni about this, and Shakuni said to Bhima, he said that Gandhari has also been married more than once. And he said so Gandhari, before she was married to Dhritarashtra, she was actually married to a banana tree. So the reason for this is because in her astrology it was seen that she'd be married more than once. So rather than allowing her to be married to one man for that to break down and marry again, they thought, so that we can cleverly fulfill the astrology, we'll marry her to a banana tree. So that's one marriage done. And the second marriage would be to her actual human husband. So Bhima found this hilarious. And so next time Duryodhana had to go at Bhima saying, your mum has had more than one union, Bhima would say, well, your mum has been married more than once as well. Yeah, you can imagine how that went down. So Duryodhana, he was incredibly incensed about this, and he knew the only person who knew that about his mother marrying the banana tree, etc., was Shakuni. And so as revenge, what he did is he imprisoned Shakuni and all of Shakuni's family. And it was very, very cruel. He only gave enough food in the prison for one person. So Shakuni basically was watching, all in prisons gathering, he was watching his relatives die. Yeah, it's horrible. So Duryodhana's understanding is like, if you've got an enemy, you don't just destroy the enemy, you destroy everyone connected to them, completely wipe them out. It's very a horrible way of thinking. So Shakuni in the prison, Shakuni's grandfather, they all decided Shakuni was the cleverest amongst them. So they decided, so if you should be the survivor, you should take the meals. There's only enough food for one person, so you should take meals, and then from that, then you can find a way to avenge our death. And the grandfather, he has some sort of ability, some sort of mystical ability. So actually what happened is, as he died, it was actually from his knuckles that Shakuni made his dice. So the dice that he used in a dice match, they were kind of like, the bones, yeah. So
sorry, we're just having a dentist.
Sorry. No, about the dice.
About
We spoke about it.
No. Pleasant domestic, so he made these kind of magical dice that whatever he called, like whatever numbers he called, that's what would appear in the dice. And so this was what happened to Shakuni. So after this, well, when he survived, he had resolved, I'm gonna destroy Duryodhana. And so that's why then he seemed to befriend Duryodhana, and he was just biding his time. So even times when Duryodhana thought, I want to just, there are times in Duryodhana, many times he was completely humiliated, and he thought, I didn't even want to maintain my own life anymore. I can't do this. But then every time Shakuni would speak to Duryodhana and say, no, come on, you can do it. And so eventually Shakuni then orchestrated that whole dice match, knowing that Duryodhana would destroy himself and his entire dynasty. Yeah, that's
a game plan.
Yeah, the game plan. Yeah.
What was Krishna's view of Shakuni?
I'm not sure. I've not really studied that or heard that, so I don't know. But I do know that ultimately, as Vyasadeva mentioned in the beginning, he says that Shakuni is the branch of this tree of envy. So it's not that Shakuni is regarded as a laudable character. He's not. Yeah.
Did he die in the Kurukshetra?
Did he?
Yeah,
He did.
Oh,
okay.
I think
one
of the twins killed him.
So before that happened, when like Duryodhana was young, and the baseline that I've had is that Shakuni kind of stayed with Gandhari because she was annoyed that she was given up to the blind king rather than Pandu, and so he was there to kind of help kind of destroy that side, like the Pandu lineage. Or just to create and stir trouble there. So I assume that was like his initial intentions of being there. And then when this happened about him telling Bhima about, that she'd been married, and then Duryodhana imprisoning him, that his intentions then changed.
Okay, I haven't heard that. I mean, what I'm taking is from where places I can get my notes from is from Govinda Prabhu, who's like read the Mahabharata and studied it, so he's not necessarily taking it from. I know there's like films and TV shows and stuff, but he's not taking it from like the scriptures, and he studied it and stuff. So I haven't heard that. What I have actually heard is that it was actually Shakuni who actually felt bothered that Gandhari had gone to be married to a blind king, and he felt that he felt somehow that was a bit beneath his sister. So that's the version that I've heard. I haven't heard the version.
Maybe that's what that is. Maybe that is. But it just seems that his intentions changed from trying to help kind of Gandhari and Duryodhana to then trying to plot against him and destroy him.
Okay.
I just wonder whether I've never heard the kind of insight that you've given. I just wonder whether that was like a flip side, where a moment where he sort of changed.
I
don't-
don't
yeah,
know.
I'm
So I don't
sorry.
know if your intention.
Just to clarify that on that. So that whole thing with Shikuni, he was young, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was younger.
Yeah, he was young. So it was actually early in his life that he decided that he wanted to plot against Duryodhana because of how his family were treated when he was young. Because that whole thing about Bhishma and is that it happened in their childhood, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it was in the childhood that Duryodhana used to insult the Pandavas about their mother.
Yeah. Because when they got a bit older and they went to the fighting school they were taught by Dronacharya, that's when Duryodhana actually stopped being so obviously antagonistic to the Pandavas, like just temporarily. But before that, he was always trying to like kill them, destroy them and stuff.
Shikuni is kind of a third gender, right? Something like that.
No, Shikandi.
Shikandi.
Yeah, it's easy to get them both mixed up. Yeah.
Who's that?
Shikandi. Okay, so
How long we got? 4 hours later.
Yeah, I just thought I'd skip some parts. But recently, so Shikandi was Amber in the previous one. Okay, so if you go back here, so Chitrangada and Chitravirya, so they were the half brothers of Devavrat, Bhishma, and so they died, but they had these 2 wives called Ambalika and Ambika, Ambalika and Ambika, and then the 2 wives had a 3rd sister called Amba, and basically, I mean, this is a really interesting story as well. But basically, Amba was like really upset with Bhishma, like just super angry at him because she felt he kind of ruined her life, and so she died with this sense of fury towards Bhishma, and then she was born as a Shikandi. And Shikandi could kind of like we were saying, kind of like 3rd gender, like Shikandi could kind of like, I think like he changed his gender. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, I think that he could kind of like change his gender. So the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna and Yudhisthira, they approach Bhishma and they ask for blessings to kill him actually, and then Bhishma actually reveals a sensitivity that he has, which is that he will never fight against women. And he considered Shikandi to be a woman, even though Shikandi was in the male body, but he could kind of like flip his gender, something along those lines. So Bhishma considered Shikandi to be a woman. So then they used that in the Battle of Kurukshetra, where Shikandi was somehow, I think, a shield for when Arjuna was attacking Bhishma, and he was able to shoot his arrows, and Bhishma wouldn't attack because Shikandi was present. So that's who Shikandi was. Shikandi was Amba in the previous life, and Amba really had a huge grievance against Bhishma.
And she was on the Pandav side, or he.
He ended up fighting on the side of the Pandavas. Yeah, he was enlisted into the Pandavas side.
And the stroke of his brother.
That's just a Jimna. It's just Shikandi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So many connections.
Yeah.
Amba wanted to marry someone else. That's why.
Okay. That's the story. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really interesting story. Okay. So we can tell it. So there was Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika, and they kind of have like, it's like a ceremony where they can, it's called a Swayambar, they can kind of like pick their husbands. And but what happened is Bhishma, he kind of came in, and before they were able to actually pick their husbands, he actually kind of stole the three sisters. And then so he wanted to marry 2 of them to his brothers. And then Amba was really upset because of someone that she actually wanted to marry, who was at the Swayamvar. And so she was really upset. And then so she said to Bhishma, I don't want to marry your brothers. I want to actually marry this person. And so she kind of argued, she kind of discussed with Bhishma. And Bhishma said, okay, fine. so then you can go, then. So she went to this prince, but then the prince said, look, you've spent time in another kingdom, in the house of another royal family, so I can't, basically in the house of another man, so I can't marry you now. And then so next day she went back to Bhishma, and then Bhishma said, well, I'm sorry, I can't marry to my brothers because you spent time in the house of another prince. So she was kind of, she was really stuck. And so then she felt that Bhishma had ruined her life. So then she tried to convince Bhishma's teacher, I get them mixed up, Parashuram and Parashuramuni. Do you know which one it is? It's Parashuram, okay. So it's Parashuram. So Amber goes to Parashuram. She's like, can you convince your disciple that at least I need to be married to someone? That's how it was in those days. So then so Parashuram said, I actually can't. That's one thing that a guru can't do, is like tell their disciple who to marry. Actually, they can give a suggestion, but they can't actually enforce that. So then Parashuram, he fought with Bhishma, and then so Bhishma was actually able to hold his own against his guru. So his guru said, okay, I can't enforce Bhishma to marry you, Amber. Bhishma already had his vow never to have any kids, never to have any connection like that. So Amber was just really stuck. So no one would marry her after that. She had nowhere to go. So she did a lot of austerities, and then when she died, she was born as Shikandi, had this vehement hatred of Bhishma. That's sad. That's true.
She was to be the cause of Vishnu's death.
Yeah,
That
that was-
was that.
Yeah.
That was her focus.
Yeah, it's a
Austerity.
meditation, yeah.
So she caused Bhishma. Was she
Crushed him, didn't she? Bhishma.
Because
She
he
didn't-
wouldn't, Vishnu
she
wouldn't
didn't
raise
care.
any weapons against Sikandi because he was born as a girl, basically.
Yeah.
So then it allowed Arjun to defeat Vishnu.
Yeah.
So he was the cause then.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that when Arjun did all those arrows
That was because
before
Shikandi.
that, that's what
Yeah.
happened.
So Bhishma basically put his arms down and he wouldn't fight, and then Arjun just led into him.
Mm.
That's the better arrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a big way. In a big way. Yeah. So did she go and see did he go and see Vishnu when he was lying on the arrows? Was there a conversation?
I don't know actually. There's only a handful of people survived at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra. I can't remember if Shikandi was one of them. I don't know. Do you know? Don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't remember hearing of Shikandi being there. So
You kind of don't hear about him after that.
yeah.
He did his bit.
Missing in action. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess just draws our discussion to a close. Thank you.
Very amazing, yeah.
Thank you very
Very
much.
Thank you.
clear
Learned so
and,
much. Really good.
Thank
Brilliant.
you.
yeah, easy to understand, actually.
It feels, oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, the way you explained it was
Yeah.
put things into place.
Well, that's good.
Very
Yeah.
complex.
Mm.
It's multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of
A
different
past life, and obviously they must have had future births as well. So I don't obviously
Mm.
let's not go into that, but yeah, it's all integrated, it's all connected.
Yeah,
All connected
definitely.
stories.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit like the Marvel universe. Isn't it? So many different stories.
10 years of film.
Yeah, 23 sessions. Yeah, yeah.
Because wasn't that last one? Wasn't there the 100 sons of Gandhari? Weren't they? They were supposed to die because of past life as well. Wasn't there? Was that story?
Oh
around?
yeah, you tell that story really well.
Just briefly. So Dhritarashtra, he approaches. I've heard different things, and maybe someone could clarify, because I heard in one class he approaches Vyasadeva, and in another class someone said that he approaches Krishna. So I'm not sure who he approached. Anyway, but he actually asked why he was born blind and why his 100 sons had to die in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So he was explained that 50 lifetimes ago he was a hunter, and he shot a flaming arrow into a nest of birds. There were 100 birds in the nest. So the flaming arrows killed the nest of birds. The parent birds escaped, but the flames from the arrows seared their eyes. So they were blinded. And so he's explained that that's why in this lifetime you were born blind and your 100 sons had to die. And then he says, well, I get it, because that was 50 lifetimes ago. So I still don't get it why it happened in this life. And he was told it took you 50 lifetimes to have, to come to the point of having 100 sons. Yeah.
To get the piety together.
Yeah.
The karma,
Yeah.
paying it back.
Yeah, but it's a good, the philosophical point is that you don't get all your karma back in one lifetime necessarily. For devotees, it's slightly different because of initiation, because of the process. It can get minimized down to just something that you have enough karma to deal with in this life so you can go back. But normally, each person will carry multiple lifetimes worth of karma, and they'll only express a certain portion of that karma. Like Prabhupada says that, if you eat cow flesh, for every hair on the body of the cow, you'll be born and slaughtered. So if someone goes and has something at McDonald's, they're carrying the karma of many lifetimes worth of taking birth in the lower species and being slaughtered. Because normally there's so much karmic burden that you can't express it all in one life. For the average person, the normal person. Yeah.
But that's obviously cut short by
by devotional service. Yeah. So it's like a huge boon. It just really minimizes what would be so many lifetimes if it's followed properly. Yeah.
Speaking about past lives, like Vidura is a really interesting character, and I've heard that in a past life he was Kamaraj. Is there like a story behind that, and like why, what happened there?
I haven't like looked at this recently, so I wanna so maybe someone else is more familiar with it recently. But yeah, he was Dhamaraj in a previous life, but I think there was one life where he had maybe I think he offended a sage, wasn't it? He really offended a sage.
He wanted a holiday. He wanted a holiday, so as an excuse, he offended the sage, and then he had to take birth as a Shudra.
He basically took birth because I think he went to Lord Krishna and said, look, this has happened. And he said, don't worry, I'm coming down. So why don't you come down? So he was born as the son of the maidservant, who was sent in place of, I can't remember now.
It would have been Ambika or not Ambika or Ambalika, one of those two.
So the one who came back the third time, who was sent. The first one was with Vyasadeva. The first one was but who's the mother?
Ambika, I think.
Ambika.
Yeah.
So Ambika was so aghast, she closed her eyes, right? So therefore, because of that subtle impression of her impression of the father, Vyasadeva, her son was born blind. And then Ambalika came, and she served very nicely, but she was still a little bit, shocked by it.
When she was in the union with Vyasadeva.
And then so both those sons, one was born blind, one was born sickly. And then Satyavati said, okay, let's call Vyasadeva again. We'll get a better son this time. And then she was going to send Ambika again. Ambika was like so freaked out the first time. She's like, let me send my maidservant. So that's who came. But she served Vyasadeva so nicely. And so therefore her heart was very sincere. And then Vidura was born from the maidservant, but his heart was very clean.
He was the most qualified.
Actually the best person out of them all.
He got kicked out, right? From
what happened? Duryodhan insulted him, and so he just went on pilgrimage. The war. And then he appears in the Bhagavatam, isn't it? On his travels.
But then he comes back
to help the Dhritarashtra
get a leave Yudhishthira's palace.
He's just brutal in words, isn't he? He just gives it to Duryodhan, and he's just like, you're living here under the protection of people that you've insulted.
He's very straightforward, but also he obviously Dharmaraj, so he knows Dharma very well. And sometimes it's sharp, it's too sharp.
Yeah. But that pastime with Dharmaraj, it was like, if I remember correctly, there was a sage who had been
Wrongly.
he'd received a reaction for something he'd done, but he felt that reaction was just far too harsh. So then he went to Dharmaraj, and then he curses Dharmaraj to be born, like to have a low birth, and then that is the holiday that where he goes to born his Vidura. Yeah, but
he takes a sabbatical.
yeah.
I always wondered, when I was reading that to Yamuna in Mahabharata book, and I was like, so what happened? Like, what happened when he took his time off? Like, did he have a handover? I don't know.
He wrote the proceedings.
Thank you. Mahabharata ki.
Yeah.
Mahabharata ki.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for arranging out.
Thank you for inviting us to your house, your home, and thanks for the voices for coming.
It's nice to have everyone back.
Yeah.
Bhuta Bhavana was wondering what his surprise is.
Oh yeah.
He's wondering.
I know what it is.
That's what I'm scared of.
We have some mango lassi.
Hey, it was worth the trip. That's what I
Thank you.
And what we'll do actually after this and kind of linked is in the next session there'll be like a course through there'll be a course on leadership. So it'll be Bhishma Dev's instructions to Yudhishthira, so just kind of linking with the Mahabharata theme. It'll be taken from one of the books for Bhakti tomorrow, so Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, Part 2. So we'll just discuss that and we'll go through the text and how it can be applied in our own life. In that sense. Yeah.
Would it be like this Sangha type?
Yeah. Okay. We'll just work out a date. Maybe we can even put a date in the diary. So
It will depend on the host.
yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. So once we have the host, we can put a date in the diary, and then we can go through more. So we just recently redid the covers for those books, and actually, Radha Maharaj was kind enough to give a quote for the book as well. So we just recovered them and we're working through the other titles. So I thought it'd be interesting to do that. So just as a series.
Right. That'd be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much from the leadership from the Bhishma, isn't there?
Oh, this.
Actually, we went on one course with you maybe many years ago.
Yeah, the man.
At the manor, when I think I first met you.
Yeah.
You were doing a leadership course on that.
Yeah, we may have just covered some.
I tried to use it. Still struggling.
Yeah, we'll go. I think this time we'll go through more detail.
Yeah.
We'll go through.
We got a comment from Darshat. Oh, so thank you so much for the amazing nectar shared. It's lovely to hear about all the stories that are interconnected.
Yeah.
Oh.
Really good.
I did actually quite forget about this. Everyone on Zoom.
What about
Oh yeah, I didn't think that was not intentional. Well, it's probably Christian intended it, but I didn't plan it.
It's not saying.
Yeah, that's
And what's really interesting is Gandhari is from Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
And Gandhari, the name comes from Kandahar. Right?
Yeah.
Gandhari, Kandahar, and then obviously that
Afghan,
whole
yeah. There's always a connection. There's always a connection.
I heard that there's a curse that country will never become advanced. It will always remain backwards.
Wow.
And so that's why
It's quite relevant.
I think that might be one of the reasons why the Taliban were able to take over the country again, because they don't want the country to advance.
Wow. No, there's always a connection. So where our parents are from, Ghana, even like in Sanskrit, that word Ghana means deep black. You know, like I think Ganesham, you know, and even complexion wise, you see there's a connection to that. So Bharat Bharsha, you know, the whole globe, was actually considered, and there's a book, The Proof of the Existence of Vedic Culture.
by Stephen
Stephen
Knapp.
Knapp, yeah. And so there's linguistic proof, there's archaeological evidence that Vedic culture was practiced all around
I
the
was
world.
searching for Vedic India. That's a really good one by
Yeah.
Devi. That's amazing. He's so many different references in that book as
Such a
well.
dense book, that one.
Yes, so many.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So
I was just saying
amazing.
earlier, last week I went to drop my son off to uni, like in the Uber cab. And as soon as I got, he's not going far, he's UCL, but in the cab we had a Bulgarian driver, and he said to me, "Have you heard about the Bhagavad Gita?" And I said, "No." Can you explain? I said, "I don't really know about the Bhagavad." And he said, "Yeah, I studied the Upanishads, I studied the Bhagavad Gita, all this." He's from Bulgaria.
Wow.
And then I said, of course I did. But he started saying that, you know, he talked about the Eastern Temple, the Swaminarayan, and the stones from there are from Bulgaria.
Oh.
And the stones were taken from Bulgaria back to India and then recarved and brought back to London.
Oh wow.
And he was saying Bulgaria is a very Vedic country.
Oh.
I was sitting listening to this.
Yeah.
Going, "Oh, this is incredible." And he's saying thousands of generations of Bulgarians have got connection to India.
Mm.
Yeah, I just wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Why would Bulgaria be connected to India? And why would he as an Uber driver know about the Gita?
That's really
I was like, wait, but it's incredible. Really was. Quite shocked.
There's something about the Kshatriyas, right? That were one generation of Kshatriyas. Was it King Bhuta? He sent some of his sons to what's now known as the Western world, and that's why it's something like that.
I heard that. Yeah, Prabhupada, he says that the Europeans they were Kshatriyas. That he's written. I've read that somewhere. There's definitely a connection, and you can even see sometimes just in the build. You know, certain countries that they have more of a Kshatriya build. Yeah, it's definitely true. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting connections.
You mean physical build?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at the Nordic countries, a lot of the men are quite big, right?
Yeah.
6-7 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the Mahabharata, one of the reasons why Parashuram he cursed Karna. Yeah, that was it. Because also Karna was presenting himself as he presented himself as a different Varna. Because Parashuram had vowed he was not going to train any of the Kshatriyas, because he killed 21 generations of Kshatriyas. But Karna, in order to get trained, he presented himself as a Brahmin. But then there was that pastime where Parashuram was asleep. I think it was on the lap. Yeah, and I'm not sure what kind of insect it was, but it was actually burrowing through Karna's skin. And so one of the distinctions between Varnas is the Brahmins, they can tolerate mental pain. Right? But the Kshatriyas, they can tolerate physical pain, but not mental pain. So it's vice versa. Kshatriyas can tolerate physical pain, but not mental pain. Mental pain is like dishonor. It really disturbs them. And the opposite is also true. The Brahmins, they can tolerate mental pain, but not physical pain. They're not so physically strong. So the fact that Parashuram was asleep, this insect's actually digging into the skin of Karna, but he's able to tolerate it.
And he tolerated it because I think Parashuram was like asleep near him.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to move and then wake up Parashuram. Yeah.
So then, but when Parashuram woke up, he could see that this person's able to tolerate this kind of physical pain, which means he's not a Brahmin.
Yeah.
He must be a Kshatriya, and that's how he knew. And then he cursed him. I think he said that when you most need it, your Kshatriya ability will lead you. Yeah. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
There's so many things. I mean, there's also, I think, Govind and maybe some other devotees in Chapati, they were speaking about why Ekalavya was also dealt with the way that he was dealt with, because there's another controversy about that as well. You know, some people feel like it's unfair. He was actually a hunter, but he wanted Dronacharya to teach him, the martial skills, but Dronacharya refused. And then some people, they say it's because Dronacharya had a bias because Ekalavya was from a certain background, etc. But that wasn't actually it.
No, it's because Ekalavya wasn't actually qualified to receive that
Training.
that training and knowledge. He would misuse the Kshatriya ability.
Yeah. Wasn't he killing animals in the forest or something like that?
Yeah, I mean he was actually a he was a tribal person, but he wanted to use the Kshatriya abilities to protect his dogs, basically.
Yeah.
But it obviously it's meant to be that Kshatriyas are protecting the people, and so Janacharya, he wasn't qualified to receive that training. So yeah, he wouldn't accept Eklavya as a disciple. Yeah.